Hello, and thank you for joining me for segment 7. Oh, we just have a few more to go. But these segments are lined up for a reason that I will be telling you about later. So, this series is called Overcoming Negative Reactions When You Get Triggered by Your Mate. So, those of you who are meeting me for the very first time, my name is Melva Johnson, and I'm co founder of the Johnson Relationship Institute for Couples. And if you're meeting me for the first time, co founder means that the other founder was my late husband, my beloved Jesse. And my goal and my mission is to continue the work that we did together, and that is to decrease divorce and to increase the number of couples enjoying long lasting love and thriving together, especially when they navigate through the challenges in life. So, one reality that I'm aware of is that love and marriage provides so many different opportunities, and many of them are opportunities that are easy to embrace, especially when things are going well. Love and marriage also offers opportunities for growth and healing if healing needs to be done. And so this series taps into the growth possibilities that love and marriage provide. Because when things are going well, the best version of us come out as human beings. It's just natural, it's just the way our brains are wired. However, when we get triggered, maybe none of you get triggered, but some of you do. I know I have gotten triggered and have had my opportunities to turn those opportunities into growth with my experience with my beloved. And I have been able to support other couples to do the same in terms of all of these years working with couples in counseling, doing workshops with Jesse, and now doing them myself. Um, that those opportunities are sacred to me and precious. Because if we don't know what to do with them, then we stay stuck in survival mode with tunnel vision, focused on surviving in terms of looking at the opportunities for growing ourselves and also contributing to the relationship thriving. Because the blind spots are where the growth opportunities are. And that's what I want to point out in this series. Actually, this is what I have been pointing out in the series. So I'm offering different ways that people get triggered. Now, people get triggered in other relationships as well, but my specialty is working with couples. So far, we've covered 6 triggers, and this time we will cover the 7th one. So this one is personal to me in a way, and it's about blended families. And so my goal is to support couples to know that the different opportunities that our relationships provide for us, the opportunities that they offer for growth means that they offer opportunities for success. So this time I'm focusing on a couple that I'm calling Frank and Francis. And like I've said before, if there's a Frank and Francis out there who's listening to this, we have not met. I do not know you, so I'm not talking about you. And you may not even be in a blended family. So this Frank and Francis that I'm talking about, they've been married for less than 10 years, and this is their success story. They both have 2 adolescents from previous marriages who live with them during the week, and they live with their biological parents during the weekend. And so one of the many challenges that they had blending their family was the fact that they have conflicting parenting styles. One is pretty structured, and the other one is pretty relaxed. So it's a very long story. So I'm just going to give you the cliff notes of what happened, especially the part that led to their success in coming together. Because before Frank and Francis got married, they were living under a separate roof with their children. So they had a style, they had a process, a way of working together with their children separately. So when they got together for visitations, going out, having fun, then it was really easy because joint parenting was not required. However, after the wedding, living under the same roof with step parents is a whole new ballgame. And those of you in blended families know exactly what I'm talking about. So this is what happened. When they moved together under the same roof, conflict began. Conflict began because Frances didn't like the way that Frank was parenting the children together. And Frank didn't like the way that Frances was parenting all four of the children when they were under the same roof. So they had a lot of conflicts. And sometimes, the arguments got pretty bad. Matter of fact, in the first year, the arguments got so bad that they considered divorce. And that is something neither one of them wanted. So what did they do? They reached out for help. First, individually, because they wanted to find out what it was that they were doing that was contributing to things going downhill. So they got a sense of that. And when they did, then they came together to figure out together how they could pull what they learned about themselves into a way of working together to turn this around. So one thing that they discovered was that there was a positive intent and there was gold in their different parenting styles. And so what they figured out together was a way to blend those two styles in a way that was win-win, because the children, they did need structure. And maybe not so rigid, but they needed structure that was going to support their growth. They also needed nurturing. They also needed to have the emotional connection of experiencing messages over and over again about their value, about the fact that they were wanted, that they were cared about, that they were loved. So to have both of those, so for this couple to come together and figure out how to get both of them, that was their first step to turning things around. Maybe that was their second step, because the first step was for them to find out what was going on with them individually, because they found out like a lot of things got triggered that had nothing or very little to do with the parenting, but a lot to do with unfinished business that they both were bringing into the relationship. So the beginning of their success was what this series is about. The first steps, because the first steps include being able to talk about it. Well, I think the step before that is having an intention and a desire to turn things around, to not just focus on what one person needs, but to focus on, to look at the bigger picture in terms of what both people need, and then set an intention for making it work, and to do each partner to make a decision to do their part to make it work. So after they set that intention, then they begin to discover how to talk to each other. Because when a person is triggered, it's very difficult sometimes. When you're flooded with emotions, it's very difficult to talk in a way that the other person can hear. Because, and I think I've repeated this over the series, but it's part of what needs to be addressed first. Because when you're finger pointing, judging, criticizing, talking about what the other person is doing wrong, they can't hear you. They just can't hear you. And when you're listening in a way that you are interrupting, and actually really not listening, just formulating what your response, actually your defense is going to be, then the other person doesn't feel heard. They can't feel heard, and you can't put them in a position to feel heard because you're flooded with emotion and you're not in a clear, safe space to do so. I hope that makes sense. So one of the first things, or within that realm of the first things that they discovered, was number one, not to have a conversation when they were flooded, to really take a time out, go into reflection, think things through, set the intention, and then come back and have the conversation. Have the conversation where they would share how vulnerable they were, where they would share their fears, their hurts, their aspirations, because their biggest intent was to have a successful marriage and to have a successful family. So when they were able to do the talking and the listening in a respectful way, then they began to see that their differences just meant that they were different, not good or bad, right or wrong. I mean, they were attracted to each other because they had those qualities, but they didn't have those qualities didn't come out like this when they were just dating and preparing to get married. So as they continued, because like I said, this is the Cliff Notes, as they continued and to see the value of each other's parenting styles, then they really did come up with a parenting style that worked for the two of them. Now, it took them a while to get there because they were wired to do and parent the way that was familiar to them. Change is not always easy. It is a step-by-step process, and it takes time. And each partner has to be patient with the other person because they're not going to be able to automatically be in that new place overnight. And I think that's one of the reasons why sometimes people say, I tried this and it didn't work. It's because they didn't try it enough. You have to do it over and over and over because in the process, you are really rewiring your brain. You are rewiring that survival part of your brain to work in alignment with logic, so that the logical part of the brain is in charge and the survival part is the support. Because you don't want to give up any part of yourself. You just want to make sure that every part of your brain and your being is in alignment with the results that you want. So they stayed with it. And like I said, it wasn't overnight for them to get to the other side because we're talking about six people coming together under the same roof. So what happened over time is that the children were able to see that both of them together, the step parents loved them as much as the biological parents loved them, that they were not being disloyal when they got along with the step parents. That's big. That's big for children because one tool that Frank and Francis used is a tool that I can relate to with the beginning of our marriage and our family coming together. And it's a tool that Jesse brought to all of us. It was called the Family Support Meeting. And every week, Frank and Francis and the children met. And they met during the days that all the children were at home. They didn't meet during the times that the children were with their other biological parents. But every week, the children, the whole family had that structure of safety and conversation where they could check in with each other, where they could share, from their hearts. And one of the things that we did, and Francis and Frank did, was that those weekly support family meetings, the last part on the agenda was, what are we going to do this week as a family to have fun? And I think Paul and Brian, well, Jesse and I enjoyed it too. But I think that was probably the icing on the cake for Paul and Brian. And if Paul and Brian want to share with all of you, maybe I can set up a call with them so that they can share their experiences about blending a family and those family support group meetings. So anyway, so that was part of their big success. You see, so having challenges is not the end all. Having challenges means look at the possibilities for how you can make it work and how you can make it work together. I mean, there were times that things got so difficult and challenging. Frank and Frances prayed their way through it, And they're glad that they did, because they kept putting one foot in front of the other. So here's the other part of what made them successful. Because Frank and Frances were the leader of that household. And so they also, I keep talking about the revised prayer of serenity, where they had the courage and the understanding that the only people that they could change in that relationship was themselves. So individually, they took on the opportunity to change themselves to be in alignment with the results that they wanted. So every time they took that step, they began to notice more and more about themselves and the other person, a better version of that other person showing up, even when they were stressed, even when they were having differences of opinion. And there's nothing wrong with differences of opinion. That is why one of the steps in terms of talking and listening is hearing what the other person has to say, making sense out of their experience and what they're sharing and what they want to contribute, and listening with compassion. So my question is, can you relate to Frank and Frances? Are you in a blended family? Have you been able to work things through in a way that you are satisfied with, happy with? If so, would you be willing to share at least one thing that worked for you? Because whatever that was, that would help other people. So if you are willing, will you share that in the comment section of whatever platform that you're watching this on? If you are struggling blending your family, please ask a question about a possible first step for you. And you can either put it in the comments section, or you can send me a personal message in terms of talking about how to get started. So that is the success story from this time in terms of turning a challenge into growth opportunity, closeness. The goal is lasting love and thriving together. So lasting love, the family has lasting love. Frank and Frances has lasting love to thrive together. And so does the family. And the children became in touch with the fact that they had more love from all four parents. Well, actually, six of the other parents remarried as well. So thank you again for joining me for this seventh segment of turning conflict into growth opportunities. And I have a couple more that I want to share with you. But the big idea is that when you look at your life and you look at your relationship, there is something that you can do about it, and it's something that you can do together. And if you need support is available, but I'll talk about that later. See you next time. Bye-bye.